My dad shamed me before everyone, saying I was just a drain compared to my brother, so I left quietly and cut them off, letting them feel the weight I'd carried alone for years. My name is Eli. I am 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the other one. Not the golden child, not the favorite, just the one who was there. My younger brother, Mason, was the prize, the golden boy, a star soccer player, a straight-A student, and an all-around trophy for mom and dad. Me? I was the guy who fixed his car when he crashed it, the one who paid off his parking ticket so our parents would not ground him from Cancun, the guy who made excuses when he skipped holidays just to keep the peace. They called it being a good older brother. I called it being invisible with a wallet. It was easier when I lived out of state. I moved to Chicago right after college, took a job in IT, and slowly built something decent, a studio apartment, a reliable income, a quiet life. But every time I visited home, usually for birthdays, weddings, or when mom missed me, I became the extra, the plus one to my own family. Conversations circled around Mason, his promotions, his new girlfriend, the charity run he did last fall. Even when I shared news, like my recent promotion to senior analyst, it barely earned a blink. My mom smiled polite but distracted, already shifting topics to Mason's upcoming business trip to Dubai. My dad grunted something about tech jobs not being real work, then changed the channel to the football game. Still, I kept showing up, not because I believed it would change, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, they would see me, appreciate me, or at least acknowledge I was trying. I brought gifts every Christmas, covered part of their mortgage during COVID when things got tight, and transferred Mason $500. Here, $300 there, always just until Friday, and always with a thank you text that felt copy-pasted. My parents never asked where the money came from. They assumed I was doing fine. You don't have a family of your own, Mom once said. You can afford to help your brother. Then came my dad's 60th birthday, a backyard barbecue, nothing fancy, just family, neighbors, and cheap paper plates stacked with burgers. I flew in for the weekend, spent half a Friday night helping Mom hang decorations, and even paid for the cake when she realized the one she ordered was too small. Saturday rolled around, and by noon the house was packed. Mason arrived fashionably late, as always, waltzing in with a new watch and his girlfriend Tessa, who had just launched a YouTube channel about minimalist living while wearing $400 sandals. My dad lit up when he saw him, hugged him, and laughed like a man who had not smiled in weeks. Then he looked at me, nodded once, and went back to Mason, like I was a neighbor who brought chips. Dinner came, drinks flowed, and people gathered around the fire pit, trading stories and teasing each other in that surface-level way families do when there is unresolved tension buried under decades of silence. That is when it happened. Someone, maybe my cousin Jake, who had a few too many drinks, asked me what I had been working on. I told them about a new security system I helped design for a logistics firm, how it was saving them thousands monthly. The conversation barely lasted a minute before Mason jumped in, talking about some deal he closed last week. My dad clapped him on the back, grinning. "That's what I'm talking about," he said, beaming. "Now that's how you make a real difference." I laughed, not out of joy, but out of that hollow, bitter disbelief that settles in when you realize you will never measure up. "Guess all I'm good for is paying the bills, huh?" I joked. My dad turned, drink in hand, and said it loud enough for the whole patio to hear. "You've always been a drain, Eli. Your brother's the one who actually matters." The world did not stop spinning. Nobody dropped their drinks or gasped in horror. A few people laughed awkwardly. Mom tried to shush him, but it was too late. My stomach dropped, not because I was surprised, but because for once he said it out loud. I did not make a scene. I did not yell, storm off, or throw a drink like in the movies. I just stood there for a second, nodding slowly, then walked inside, grabbed my suitcase, booked an early flight back to Chicago, and left. No note, no goodbyes, just silence. The days that followed were oddly peaceful. No texts, no calls, no fake check-ins or how are yous from relatives trying to play neutral. I went back to work, focused on myself, canceled the monthly auto transfer I'd been sending Mason just until he gets on his feet, cut off the family plan. I had still been paying for including the data Mason used to stream music at the gym, and logged out of the shared Netflix I had been letting them all use. I quietly disappeared from their financial lives, one subscription at a time. 3 weeks passed. Then, one night while I was making dinner, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mason, short and annoyed. "Why did you stop sending me money?" I stared at it for a minute, then typed. Didn't want to waste it on someone who already had everything that mattered. I had never hit send so fast in my life. After that, things got interesting. My mom called a few days later. I did not answer. Then came a flurry of texts. First concerned, then guilt-trippy, then angry. "You're being immature. We're family. Mason needs you right now." I ignored them all. I was not being cruel, I was just done. But what I did not expect was how fast things would unravel without me. It started subtly, little signs that the scaffolding I had been quietly holding up for years was buckling now that I was not there to keep it steady. The first call came from my Aunt Linda. She never really picked sides, just floated in the background with her passive shrugs and polite nods. But this time, she was not so neutral. "Eli," she said after I let her call go to voicemail and she tried again immediately, "your mom's in tears. She says Mason's behind on rent, and she and your dad are dipping into their savings to help. What's going on?" I did not answer right away. I just sat there, staring at the wall, like it might give me permission to finally say what I had swallowed for years. "I stopped helping," I said flatly. "Guess that means it was never really Mason's money to begin with." She was quiet for a second, then sighed. "You know how they are. They don't think about the consequences until they're buried in them. Maybe that's the only way they'll learn," I replied and hung up. After that, it got worse, or better, depending on your perspective. Apparently, without the $500 I used to send Mason every 2 weeks, he missed his rent 2 months in a row. His credit card bills started stacking. Tessa, whose idea of hard work was editing her own thumbnails, dumped him the moment his Venmo started bouncing. She posted a tearful breakup video titled, "Leaving a Toxic Relationship, My Truth," that got more views than all her previous content combined. The irony was not lost on me. Then came the part no one expected. My parents' finances started crumbling. When I was younger, my dad used to brag about how real men handle money without whining. What he did not mention was that his handling came with a lot of silent help, like the $800 I slipped them every Christmas for house repairs, or the loan I repaid quietly on his behalf when he defaulted after a failed business venture 5 years ago because, as my mom said, he doesn't need the shame. Now, without me in the background cleaning up their messes, things were not so clean anymore. Their internet got cut off. Mom had to cancel her book club when they could not host anymore. Dad's truck was repossessed. Apparently, he had been using Mason's name to open lines of credit, something no one admitted until the collectors started calling him. The part that twisted the knife? No one came to me for help, not directly. They went to Linda, to my cousin Jake, to an old friend of mine from high school who still lived nearby. I guess they thought someone else could talk some sense into me. One of them even tried to guilt me through LinkedIn. The final straw was my mom's email, subject line, "Come home." She kept it short, but every word felt like it had been pulled from the pages of some manual titled, "How to Manipulate Without Saying You're Sorry. Your father isn't well. Mason's doing his best. I know you're angry, but this family needs you. We've always needed you. Please think about what really matters." I read it 5 times, then opened a draft, typed out a reply, and deleted it. What was I supposed to say? That I did think about what really mattered for 28 years, and apparently it had never been me? That I had spent birthdays listening to my dad praise Mason's potential while I stood in the kitchen scraping plates? That when I graduated college, they mailed me a card and signed it, but rented a boat for Mason's high school diploma instead? I let silence answer for me. I did not respond, and for the first time, they finally felt what it was like to miss me. Not the me they half listened to over dinner. Not the me who paid off their debts behind closed doors, but the one they took for granted every single day. And that silence? It grew loud. Linda texted again. "You need to see this," she wrote, followed by a screenshot of a Facebook post from my mom. It was a photo of her and Dad sitting on a porch that clearly was not theirs, someone else's house, probably borrowed for the picture. The caption read, "Family isn't about money, it's about love." Some people forget that when they walk away. The comments were full of sympathy. People who knew half the story or none at all chiming in with heart emojis and "You're such strong parents." I did not comment. I did not like it. I just stared at it, feeling something I could not name. Not anger, not sadness, just a kind of cold clarity. This was not new, it was just the first time I did not cover it up. But what came next? That was the part no one saw coming. 2 weeks after that Facebook post, I got a letter. Not an email, not a text, a letter, actual envelope, blue ink, my name written in that tight cursive my mom always used when she was trying to look proper. It was forwarded through my old address, the one I had used when I first moved out for college. I opened it slowly, expecting another guilt trip or some passive-aggressive plea for forgiveness. But what I found was something stranger, a handwritten note about a page long, with tear stains on the corner and a slight coffee ring near the bottom, like she had spilled something while trying to figure out what to say. It was not an apology, of course. It was not, but it was something else. "Eli, I know you probably won't read this, and if you do, you'll think I'm just making excuses. Maybe I am. Maybe I deserve the silence. But I need to explain something. Your dad's not doing well. He won't tell anyone, but the doctor said it's his heart. He's scared. That's why he's lashing out more. That's why he said what he did. Mason's struggling too. He's not as strong as you think. He never was. You were always the one we could count on. Not because we didn't love you, but because you handled things. You were solid, reliable. Maybe that wasn't fair. Maybe we leaned on you too much. But Eli, families make mistakes, and right now we're falling apart. We need you. Please come home. It should have cracked something open in me, should have tugged at that old guilt I used to carry around like a second skin. But instead, I felt nothing, just tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, but the kind that sits deep in your bones, the kind that comes from carrying too much for too long. Still, a part of me could not stop wondering if it was true. About my dad, about Mason, about everything they had hidden behind their expectations of me. So I did something I had not done in a long time. I looked. I did not call. I did not ask. I researched. I found Mason's LinkedIn, still listed as freelance consultant, no activity in 6 months. The company he used to work for had quietly removed him from their team page. I checked public records. He had been evicted twice. Then I looked up my parents' house. It was in pre-foreclosure. And suddenly, it all made sense. The letter, the post, the calls from relatives I had not spoken to in years. They were not reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because the bank finally hung up the phone. But here's the thing. They did not know what I had done. A week after walking out of that backyard barbecue, while they were still passing the potato salad and praising Mason's newest hustle, I had started looking at property listings, specifically their neighborhood, their block, and I bought a house. Not to live in, not to rent, just to have. It was 2 doors down from theirs, a fixer-upper that needed a new roof and some foundation work. I paid in cash, set up renovations under a holding company with no traceable connection to me, changed the mailbox, and even parked an old junker in the driveway to make it look abandoned. They never noticed, but they would soon. Because while they were scrambling to figure out why the bank was no longer patient, why the bills kept piling up, why Mason's safety net vanished, something else was quietly moving into place. And it all came to a head on a rainy Wednesday. I was working from home when the call came in, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, another one, this time from my mom. I picked up. Her voice was shaky, desperate. "Eli," she said, "someone bought the house next door. It's you, isn't it?" I did not say anything, just let the silence stretch. "I saw your name on the permit," she said, voice cracking. "You've been here this whole time, watching us." Still, I said nothing. I don't understand. Why would you? Finally, I spoke, calm, steady, like I had practiced it, because I wanted to see what happened when the drain stopped carrying the weight. She started to cry, not sobbing, not dramatic, just quiet, broken sounds. "Eli, we're losing everything." "You already lost me," I said, and hung up. But it did not stop there, because what came next was the fallout. Mason, who had not worked a steady job in over a year, tried to spin the story online, claimed I was cutting the family off out of spite, and posted a now-deleted tweet calling me toxic and abusive. But I had receipts, not literal ones. I never needed to post screenshots or bank transfers. People remembered, the cousin whose college books I bought, the uncle whose hospital bill I covered, the niece I sent a laptop to during lockdown. They reached out quietly. "We didn't know," they said. "We're sorry." I did not need an army. I just needed them to finally see. And now, as foreclosure signs go up and the family group chat goes silent, I sit on the porch of that little renovated house down the street, sipping coffee and watching them scramble. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity, because sometimes the only way to teach people what you are worth is to let them feel your absence. But just when I thought the story had settled, when I thought they had learned the lesson, an envelope arrived. This one was not from my mom, it was from Mason. Inside, a signed check, and a note that simply read, "You win." But that is when I realized he still did not get it, because this was never about winning. And what I did next changed everything. I stared at that check for a long time. It was not much, barely enough to cover a month's rent in a half-decent city apartment, but the message behind it said everything, "You win." As if this had all been a contest, as if finally being seen, finally being valued, finally choosing myself, was some petty game I had to win. That is when it hit me. He did not understand. None of them did. I was not trying to prove a point by walking away. I was not looking for revenge. I was not even trying to hurt anyone, though I will not pretend their pain did not feel like justice sometimes. No, I was just done. Done being their emotional ATM, their unpaid fixer, their afterthought. Done being the guy they only noticed when something needed to be paid, covered, or repaired. But even in their collapse, they could not let go of the idea that I was the problem for finally letting go. Still, I did not tear up the check. I did not frame it either. I slid it into the back of a drawer, unopened. Let it sit there like a fossil from a life I used to live. And then I did something they never expected. I moved on. I sold the house next to theirs. I did not even visit it during the sale. I let a local investor take it, and last I heard he planned to tear it down and build something new, a clean slate. That felt right. I did not want to keep watching them unravel. I did not want to keep score from the shadows. I wanted to build a life where I mattered, not because I was useful, not because I was dependable, but because I existed. So I started saying yes to things I used to put off. I booked a trip to Iceland, just me, a camera, and no itinerary. I signed up for cooking classes because I was tired of microwave meals and lonely dinners. I even joined a local hiking group, something I used to roll my eyes at when coworkers invited me, thinking, why would I waste a Saturday morning with strangers? Turns out, strangers can become something better than family. Some of them did. A few months into this new rhythm, I met Danny. She was blunt, smart, and had this habit of calling people out when they tried to undersell themselves. She noticed I always introduced myself by my job title first. You're not your job, she told me once over coffee, unless you want to be. But that's a pretty small box to live in. We started slow. Coffee, walks, late-night calls that bled into early morning silence. And for the first time in years, I did not feel like I had to prove anything to earn someone's affection. I did not have to fund someone else's dreams just to be invited to their table. With Danny, I just was. One evening, nearly a year after I walked away from my family, I got a call, blocked number. I let it ring. A voicemail followed. It was my dad, his voice hoarse, slower than I remembered. He sounded smaller. Eli, I don't know if this number still works. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I miss you. Your mom does too. Mason, well, he's figuring things out, but I was wrong, son. I was wrong for a long time, and I know saying that now might not matter. But if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. I did not cry. I did not smile either. I just sat there, holding the phone, listening to a man who had spent a lifetime measuring love by usefulness, finally realizing that the cost of his pride was silence. I did not call back, not then. I waited a week, then two. Then one Sunday, while Danny and I were folding laundry in our new apartment, I said, I think I might write him. She looked up. Because you want closure? No, I said, because I'm ready. The letter I sent was not cruel. It was not cold. It was not dramatic. It was just honest. Dad, I got your voicemail. I've spent a long time trying to understand why things were the way they were. I'm not writing to make you feel guilty. I just want you to know that I needed to leave. I needed space to figure out who I was outside of who you all expected me to be. I'm not the drain. I never was. I'm not coming back to fix things, but I'm willing to talk. On my terms, if you can accept that. Here's my number. I sent it and did not wait by the phone. I did not hold my breath. I did not make room for false hope. I had built something solid, something separate. I did not need their apology to move forward, but if they offered it, I would hear it. Weeks passed. Then one evening I got a text from an unknown number. Thank you. I don't deserve this chance, but I'll take it. Dad. We met for lunch a few days later. Just him and me. No declarations. No sweeping redemption arcs. Just two people, broken in their own ways, sitting across from each other and trying to talk. He asked about work, about my life, about Danny. He even said her name like it mattered to him, not like a placeholder for some life he thought I should be living. Eventually, he said, I really messed up. I nodded. Yeah, you did. He did not flinch, just nodded back. I'm trying to be better, he said, even if it's too late. It's not too late, I said. It's just not the same road anymore. That is what healing looked like for me. Not forgiveness wrapped in a bow, not going back to the way things were, but building something new, something smaller, slower, sturdier. As for Mason, we did not talk for a while. I heard through the grapevine that he picked up a steady job, something stable, no more startup ideas, no more get-rich schemes, just work, real work. He reached out eventually, not with a request, just a message. I didn't understand what I was asking of you all those years. I do now. I'm sorry. I did not respond right away. When I did, I just wrote, I believe you. Let's take it one step at a time. And we did. That was 2 years ago. Today, my life does not look dramatic. It is not a revenge story or a perfect redemption arc. It is just mine. I go to work, I come home, I cook with Danny, I read, I laugh, I rest. I send birthday cards to my parents. Sometimes we talk on the phone, sometimes we do not. Mason and I grab a drink once a month. No handouts, no tension, just brothers trying again, differently this time. The thing is, people do not always get the ending they want. But if they fight for it, if they walk away when the pain gets too loud and choose peace over obligation, they get the ending they need. And I did. Because I am not the drain. I am the reason the house stood as long as it did. And now, finally, I am the reason my own life does.